All right, hello and welcome to the Bricecast, Call of Duty Esports podcast, talking to players and covering esports news. My name is, of course, Bryce, and I'll be bringing you through this one. But more importantly, my guest for this episode, Justin, better known as Silly. First of all, how are you, my friend?
I'm pretty good right now, just chilling, relaxing in the off season. Playing a lot of Among Us, a lot of Warzone.
You and the entire Call of Duty community, I think that's basically the schedule at the moment for anybody. Play some Warzone, and you're like, nope, now I want to go scream at all my friends for an hour about why they're a liar and I'm not. Um, let's kind of get straight into some big topics. Now, first of all, congratulations on the team move. It's always big news when a player signs with a new agency. Are you excited to kind of are you moving to LA? I don't know what's going on with COVID right now.
Yeah, I think all of us are going to move to LA, at least during season. Um, COVID there, it's probably pretty locked down. Not a lot of stuff is open there, so I assume it's going decent. Really excited to be close to home though. Quick little 4-hour drive back and forth if I want to come back home. So definitely a lot closer than being in Minnesota.
Just, just for clarity, right? Obviously, that's a difference in cultures between the US and the UK. 4 hours is not a quick drive. Just that's basically the majority of my country. like,
Yeah.
like one end to the
Even
other over here.
if you drive through my state, I think it's like 10 hours if you drive from the bottom to the top.
I think friends of mine have done like a 6 to 8 hour drive, and that you leave the country at that point. That's out of the country into Scotland and doing various other bits. Like I think it took me 6 hours to basically get to the border, and I'm fairly southern, so to get to the northern border is obviously a fairly long drive for me. But no, it's awesome. They said I wanted to have you back on, but I knew there was some switching going on with the teams, and that's actually an issue I'm having at the moment with podcasts in general. Is oh are these people coming on? Yes, but they need to wait for their team announcement, or they need to wait for some news to come out and that sort of stuff. I've even got people lined up in the future. It's like, well, I've made the thumbnails, but I've kind of guessed what teams are going to, or learnt the insider trading. Has off season been stressful for you because of this, or was it fairly easy going? Like, well, just basically what happened,
Um, the off season this year was really stressful. This is probably the first one that's been like actually stressful for me. I literally just wanted it to be over with the entire time. Obviously coming off a poor last half of the year makes things really stressful, especially with jobs being cut. So, obviously 20% less jobs. And then also we got smoked for the last half of the year. I'm just like, wow, man, this is absolutely horrific. We're lucky to get on a team with no expansion at this point. To slide onto one of them and, happy to be on LA because that's where I wanted to go in the first place. Um, but yeah, don't want to ever deal with an off season like that ever again.
well, fingers crossed it's all plain sailing for at least the next couple of years before I'm sure everything goes mad again. Um, so usually in this, I like to start somewhere like where I kind of put like, or at least I first recognize your career or the pro part of your career. But I was looking through, and obviously you've been around for quite a long time in Call of Duty esports. As I was going through your records, so here's an interesting question: when did you consider that you went professional? Because like you've been around since like you were playing in Black Ops 2, COD 4. I've got it back here. Like there's a long list here. But when do you think you actually hit? This is a professional career for me.
A professional career for me, it probably started to be that way in AW, and then in IW, it was actually like, well, I can put more time into this and focus on this, and you know, it's actually sustainable.
That makes sense because obviously like you went from Black Ops 3, Cloud 9, not a bad team by anyone's recognition, into EUNited. Um,
Mhm.
let's start there then. Let's start IW. Not the greatest of starts, IW for you, according to this. Las Vegas Open, 21st, 24th, with EUNited, actually legal, Pac-Man and Silly. Is this because obviously EUnited's a well-known brand now in Call of Duty? Maybe not so much back then. It was still kind of being founded and coming through. But what do you think was the difference in terms of like turning up and saying, "Hey, we're coming here to play properly and professionally now"?
Definitely the event after that. Obviously, Vegas didn't go great for us, but
We'll get to that
We had
next
a
event.
full roster reskin going into Atlanta, and obviously we won that event, so that's kind of when it made that like jump. I kind of got control of the team because I was like the best one on the team at that time, so he kind of just Burns just let me kind of pick up who I wanted. I actually could have picked up known pro players over the Twins and Gunless if I wanted to, and I would have made more money, but I took a pay cut to pick up those three.
I mean, obviously now those three are known as some of the greatest players of all, of recent times. But back then, yeah, I can see exactly what you mean. But that must have been cathartic for you at the very least, right? Obviously, it was a really bad start to IW. You picked this team, and obviously, when you look at Arceus, Pristini, and Gunless, incredibly talented players. After that event, did you notice a difference in terms of the way people were approaching you, or the way you were kind of in the scene? Because winning a big CWL event, it always makes kind of ripples through your career.
Yeah. I mean, there's a ton of fans and players alike that treat people different depending on their social status or how they're doing in the current game, which is, I'll never participate in any of that. But yes, there's there's a lot of people that will treat people differently because of how they're doing or how their team's doing or if they need something from them. Obviously that changes depending, if you're winning, losing, and it sucks it's like that, but yeah, definitely.
No, yeah, I get that, and it's one of these ones where, like, looking back in the history of Call of Duty to what it is now, like I feel like now it's less of a change because people, as soon as you come in now, there's always this hype over any new player or any player that's just starting to come through to the top where people already kind of know and expect a lot of them. Back then, it was a little bit of elitism, snobbish, bit snobbish occasionally for a lot of players here. Going through your IW career, actually, it's interesting. It kind of goes up and down a little bit. What exactly happened in Paris, by the way? Because you went from first to, and that's a week later, if I read that correctly. A week later, Paris did not go well for you.
So we were on pretty much a 3-week trip from Atlanta to Paris, I'm pretty sure. I ended up when I got to Paris, I had strep throat the entire time, and also Preston was super sick as well. So I was just like, I was literally at the point like we just won, and I was so sick, and I like needed to go home, super bad. And then we ended up getting smoked because of it. Two of us being sick, isn't the recipe for a win. Granted, we got knocked out by like a 6-5 last map, but yeah, we were really sick.
Did that allow you to kind of take that loss a little bit easier, or were you still annoyed even though you were like ill? Because I feel like that's a great excuse. Well, we were basically like struggling to play at what we know was an appropriate level.
We definitely could have went back to back if we were 100%. But obviously we weren't. Uh, Us getting first to the last event definitely kind of cushions that loss a little bit. I wasn't like like super mad about it, but it still sucks to lose.
No, I can see that. I was wondering, are you one of those players who takes losses really badly? Because a lot of players don't take losses well. Obviously, you're all competitors. You want to win. It's something that I've always said. You can tell when you meet a player. But I've always said as well, right? You can tell where a player is in their career by how badly they take their losses. They take their losses really well. They're starting to lose that competitive edge. But is it one of these like do you rage? Do you go a bit of a sulk? Like I've seen players who just speak to their teammates for like the next day. What kind of how do you deal with it?
I never sulk or anything. It kind of depends on how I lose. If we lose because we beat ourselves over doing something stupid, yeah, I'll rage. I'll rage real hard. But other than that, I like to try and go over why we lost immediately after, so it gets engraved in everyone's brain. Like, why do we do this? We shouldn't have done this. Because if you give it a day and you like let everybody relax, then the sting kind of wears off, and then your words that you're saying aren't as like critical to them. They don't care as much. So as soon as you lose, figure out why you lost. If we beat ourselves, like if you do something really stupid to barely lose, then yeah, that's super annoying, and you really have to just, you have to call out whoever did it, pretty much.
Here's an interesting question that I've always found so kind of weird about pro players, and in fairness, it's not just pro players. Fans and casters do this as well. there are those moments, especially in tight games, where it's like, if I'd gone left or won that one gunfight, it would have been a different result. And it kind of like completely invalidates the rest of the map. Like there were probably many moments like that on the rest of the game where you could have won a gunfight and got like an extra 4 points. But because it's right at the end, if you lose that 4 points, people seem to stress over those moments way more than I think is probably appropriate.
I agree with that. I don't really ever stress too much over moments like that where there's like a late game decision maker because obviously a lot of stuff had to go wrong to get to the point where you're actually losing. So I kind of don't micromanage like one certain play like that, and you kind of have to think about the whole game.
Yeah, like I said, it depends. For me, it always depends on the player on the spectrum. Some of them are like just reminiscing 3 years later about a missed grenade throw they've made, in a final somewhere, and I'm like, that was not the problem, right? Like you didn't lose 3 maps by that one problem, right? Um,
Yeah.
so it's always interesting to get a player's point of view on that and how they deal with taking a loss and rebuilding after it. Now, the rest of this, obviously, you came back from Paris, obviously recovered, and went to the Dallas Open, right? Like the Dallas Open you went to, you came second in the end to that one. I'm guessing that was a harder loss to take because coming second is never fun for any pro player.
Yeah, we actually almost reverse swept Optic twice. We did in the first series, and then going into the second series, we could have again, but we actually played Scorch S&D last map. And that map was so bad that immediately after that event, it got taken out. So like we ended up getting stuck with this horrible map that they literally like fried us on, and it was never there again. So really unfortunate. I feel like if it was a different map, we would have won that series. So it really sucks that it was Scorch.
Yeah, I mean, that probably would have changed a few of the narratives going forward, right? Because that was obviously the part of the Dynasty OG squad that a lot of people like to talk about and kind of rave. Now, this is always weird because I always try to break down the global pro leagues and how the pro leagues were and stuff because technically you come top 4 in it, it counts as a win, and then you go into the playoffs. The first playoff, stage 1, didn't go particularly well. And this is actually essentially the end of that team that had already won earlier on. What happened in that playoff season with, Gunless or what happened with him around it? Because obviously, that's got to be a factor. Essentially, I just want to kind of know from your point of view, that EUNited team was doing well, then suddenly wasn't.
Basically, um, I wasn't the greatest teammate in the world. I kind of prioritized other things over scrimming a lot of the time. But I feel like we were still super good. Pierce was kind of falling into the trap of like the other like we were talking about earlier, like the other pro players like trying to talk to him and things like that, and like kind of trying to poach him a little bit. So he ended up just wanting to leave after that event, which I mean pretty much was our first bad event if you don't count Paris.
Yeah.
Um, and so after that, our team kind of just like fell apart, and we were in like a weird limbo period where Pearson wanted to play with us, but it was like hard to get a fourth that was like as good as him. So we went to like I think Anaheim was after that, and we just picked up like we picked up Swarley to play with. Hadn't really practiced with him much. Kind of got smoked there too.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a really really weird period.
No, yeah, I can see that in my notes. Yeah, come top 12 at Anaheim, which obviously a little bit of a fall from grace. But here's the best thing, essentially you started to build an incredible roster because you had Clayster come in, right? And obviously a lot of people know at that time, Clayster on the come up, and this is the start of him being in that EUNited squad that eventually won a world championship in. But it went, I want to say it went okay for you guys. Like you stage 2 playoffs, you came third. That's a very good result for that team. Obviously not the result you probably would have liked, but in balance, your IW season definitely had you pegged as like a top 3 potential team for a good portion of it. Like there was at no point you could really count you out. It just seems like IW for you, if you don't mind me saying, was circumstantial, really like based on the team on that event on that weekend, not how they would be over a longer period. Like it's really easy to look at all these results, right, and say, well, that's first, second, third, 12th, ninth, first, whatever. And then there's always a reason behind it, right? Like team changes, you said, and there's like I said, first team change, then the second team change. kind of always built you back up to that point, all the way leading into the World Championship 2017. Now, that's a little bit of an anomaly for me because that's top 6 in what I would have usually said you should have been higher in. And I always like to ask pro players about champs because every pro player remembers their champs very, very well. What happened? What happened that event, 2017?
Very similar to what happened at playoffs beforehand. I don't want to say like at playoffs we kind of like underestimated Envy because we used to bully them all year. Like it was like a 3-0 every time we play them. They obviously ended up a lot better at playoffs and champs. We came out kind of flat on Sunday, lost to them, and that kind of just put us in a bad situation. Then going into champs, we're playing Envy. I think we're up. What was it? It must have been, yeah, it was like 1-1. We're up 10-0 in the uplink. Get 10-0 came back on. We're up 120 points in the next hard point. Get came back on. And after a loss like that, I feel like it was super, super hard for us to regain and come back from. So our series against LG was just like whatever. Like it was like a lost full playing them series. So
Yeah, no, I can see that. Like I say, it's always interesting for World Championships because I've never met a pro player who doesn't remember what they've done. Sometimes it's a little bit like confusing because you play so many events, especially back in those days, right? But World Championships, there's not a player worth their salt who doesn't remember everything that happened during a World Championship because obviously it means so much, right? And I suppose that the best part of this is now moving to the next year. And obviously, we know what happened in the next year, but we'll get to it. One of the questions I had as we walk back through your history here, right, is why didn't the team make a change? That is rare for a team to not do that in the off season, especially back then. So I'm curious. How come this team that came, top 6 at champs, and a lot of players would have gone, oh, that's it, I want a new squad for next year, or but that team stuck. Your team stuck back to back, game wise.
We were definitely good enough to win an event. It just seems like once we went from Pierce to, or once we went from Gunless to Clay, it seems like we lost a little bit of ice, in like clutch scenarios like that. But you know, we definitely could have won playoffs. We definitely could have. I mean, we were the only team that could have beat Optic at champs. So it sucks we went out so early because they were just going to absolutely smoke everybody else, which was the story of the year.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I mean, we had faith we could still win an event. Even going into the next year, we still could have won events. It's just all really unfortunate.
I think that's interesting. Like I said, for me, and this is obviously, I say jaded, but I would like to also call it experience, right? I've been around Call of Duty Esports for a decade, and I know there are trends. So when I see a team that has had an average placement, way below what your expectations would have been, to stick together is an anomaly, right? It's not something that usually happens. And then I'm looking for this year because there are a few interesting things. I don't actually remember what this event is. But we'll talk about Dallas. So Dallas, who came in 5th, 6th again. At that point, was there any rumblings of, oh God, this is maybe not the team for me? Because I know it's hard in the professional capacity to not get a win, not come in a final, not get top 3. Did anything happen like start of World War II that started to put any stresses on the team?
I mean, no, because it kind of comes down to the same thing, like how we lost, like how close we were. I don't know if anybody remembers how we lost that event, but TK won that event, obviously. We played them in winners, and we got 5-5 last map. We got collateral sniped on USS Texas. So we lost that game 5 round 11, and then they ended up winning the event. Obviously, we got top 6. If that round goes differently, I feel like we can win that event easily. And just same thing. Like we're right there, right there. We're right there pretty much every event.
That's another great thing about Call of Duty history, right? Is looking at it from a surface level. Top 6, not a great result for you as a player. But when you speak to players like yourself, you know that obviously first of all you lost to the winners, and what happened, right? There are, and I think this is definitely not covered enough, right, in Call of Duty right now in the esports total. There is very little context to some historic results. There is usually just like it's usually like, oh, this guy was just frying that year, and that realistically, if I'm being perfectly frank, means fuck all. It doesn't give the context of personality traits, what role were they playing, what was the map pool like, how deep was it, who do they match up badly against. Like there are so many factors to this, which is why I always like speaking to players about what happened back then, because it's super curious to me how a team copes and moves forward with losses and deals with adversity, rather than just going, yeah, we were champions 8 times. That's great, but if you're winning, you're not learning. The next event, I figured out what it is, by the way. It's the Northern Arena, which is the cinema event in Canada, I believe.
Yeah.
Which is a really weird event. That's why I couldn't remember it, because I didn't go to it, and I couldn't remember what on earth it was. I just remember it being like a red event in Canada, and you played Luminosity in the final. Which is a good team, especially at the time, right? JCap,
Yep.
Octane Select. Anything happened in that one?
I think we just got to the final. I think we might have been in losers. I think we were in losers or something, and then we lost game 5 in the first best of 5. So game 5 again, lost the team that won. Super unfortunate.
Your career is, like I said, there are patterns. We are finding one, which is interesting in itself. Now I'm going to collect these next few events together, right? Because fifth six, all New Orleans, the Atlanta Open, Stage 1, CWL Birmingham, you crashed out top 16. That's a big loss on the calendar. And if I remember correctly, that may be the asterisk event with the weird monitors, right? Correct?
Yeah. So New Orleans, game 5, round 11, lost to TK again. They win the event. Going into Atlanta, there's some personal stuff going on with some people on our team. We may have broken some GAs during a match. And then obviously, yeah, it seems like at that Birmingham event with those monitors, all the AR players suffered really, really bad. I mean, we had Clay and Alec with like 0.8, 0.7, like, so that's definitely an asterisk event. I don't put any full
let's
blame on anything in that one.
let's take it while we're walking down this lane. Let's take a little tangent off into the world of GAs. I've made argument, especially because you take the last year of GAs and the weirdness that happened during the last game. It's such a weird thing to explain to people outside of our esport that essentially it's not the rules, but we all just kind of agree to do it. And it's actually got worse over the years, because not only are GAs now like a lot of things for pros, but it resonates. Like pros will make GAs that technically don't exist and have had contracts signed against them, but that will be the official GAs for the challengers and below, and even in GBs, right? Like
Yeah.
it's crazy to me how much of an impact they have. You said right there, you guys may have broken a few GAs. Like, what do you feel about the GA situation at the moment? How is it seen? Because it does seem like this. It's essentially right now. Unfortunately, no, I don't think any pros have broken it recently. It's always like that hanging sword over any team.
I feel like it's needed to an extent, unless we have devs that are going to like daily or weekly take things out of the game that we need out. I feel like it's a really good thing to have. Because if we don't agree to it, you could have a few teams that are just going to use it anyways, and then it makes scrims inconsistent. Makes you worry about it in matches and things like that. It sucks we have to do that, but it's just like needed.
No, yeah, I can see that. I think I can't even remember if I released the video. I went in on it. I think the problem people have with GAs this year, because this is a lot of the times GAs are seen as a necessary evil by competitors and the community, right? And we accept it. We know it's ignored by everybody else because it has to be. It's kind of like an unofficial weird thing Esport has. This year, obviously, it came into the timeline. It went public. There were mass disagreements. I was fortunate enough to be in some discords with some professional players this year when GAs were being discussed outside of the actual group of captains. and it seemed very vicious and toxic. Like it was not a clear-cut thing this year, and obviously that spilled over to the community knowing about it, and people accusing these pro players of knee-jerk reactions and essentially bad faith GAing. Why do you think that is, and how does that get fixed in the future?
Um, I mean, like I was saying, the best way to fix it is to, you know, have it fixed at the source. Like, if we, if there's something that needs to be out and we can get it actually removed and banned from the game, that's going to fix all these constant, GA talks and trying to get things out of the game and everything else. And another thing too is that there's like bias on the GAs because if let's say like a sub attachment is going to be banned. If your team's sub heavy and your sub players are your superstars, why would you ban these? Why would you want to get rid of these? And then a team that's AR heavy, they want to get rid of them, and it's back and forth and a back and forth, and it's
Yeah,
really, really repetitive.
but that's the issue, right? That's the issue that everybody's talking about is GAs. Like I said, I do believe they are necessary at points because the developers don't. Developers are more hands off in that regards because obviously we have a fast changing meta, right? New Call of Duty, we don't get it in competitive games, and we have like an 8-month cycle. That's it. Rapid events, rapid meta changes, rapid GAs. It's all so quick turnaround when you look at any other esport. So it has to happen from the players because the players can GA something now and it will be gone for scrims in the next tournament. Just gone, done. It's a conversation, right? But
Yeah.
that conversation, especially this year on the timeline, I think I said it publicly. I was disgusted by some of the attitudes of players that I saw because if you are, and obviously they're only doing it for the professional level, but if you're doing something that is going to affect the esport, the entire way down, all players, all results, every level of the community, and there isn't a logical reason behind it. It's just a bad faith argument. Like I believe one of the arguments I took offense with was, "Oh, we've been playing with this meta all year. Let's just keep the meta," even though the meta had actually changed because the guns had changed statistics. Right? That for me didn't
Yeah.
make sense. Like you can't say, "Oh, well, if the guns have changed anyway, then obviously the meta's changed regardless." Like it's a bad faith argument. I'm fine with any GA being changed to promote competitive integrity and more consistent results. I'm not okay with a GA being changed to benefit one subset of people or because they don't like it in the game so far. And I'll take examples of this year, like the Uzi and stuff. Where if that was so powerful all year, why the fuck weren't people using it before the MP5 changed? Like it's really weird for me how, and because I'm scared it's going to happen again. The reason I don't like this because I'm scared it's going to happen again. There's no reason why it won't happen again because the system's the exact fucking same.
I mean, you're definitely right in that aspect, and like the reason nobody really, I don't think anybody had used that Uzi with those rounds beforehand because when the MP5 is already overpowered, what's the point in trying other guns, And if the MP5 is not viable anymore, then everybody has to kind of try and find the next best overpowered gun. So that's kind of how it plays out. Always got to find the next best thing, and then something else broken comes in, and then just a vicious cycle.
It just seemed to me like I don't see a lot of people running that Uzi. I was just like, well, if the MP5 was that overpowered with 10 mil rounds, because here's the worst part of the GAs this year, by the way, is the 10 mil rounds weren't GA'd or weren't even up for topic of GA, this big fight that was had on the timeline, until after the MP5 had already been nerfed. Like
Yeah,
that's what happened. The MP5
I
got
didn't get that.
nerfed, and then that come into the topic of, well, we've got to get rid of these as well. Like what happened for
So
the last 6 months?
well, I think why that happened in the first place was because the Uzi rounds were overpowered, and then the MP5 kind of just got thrown in with it as like ammo conversion, so they kind of just like grouped them together. Which obviously the Uzi rounds were way better than the 10 millimeter on the MP5, but
It
you
just
know,
it just seemed like, for me at least, and possibly that's where I think people lost faith in the process. It's a closed process anyway, right? People just accept the pros' deliberations and hope for the best. But then when you see professionals disagreeing publicly, saying this is bullshit, that's when people lose faith in a system that only has faith, right? That's all GA has. It has faith of the people to trust professionals to make these quick adjustments to benefit everybody. It's just an interesting thing for me. And like I said, I just wanted to get your feelings on GAs and what you see the future of them, and because obviously I don't think it's ever going to be a rapid developer turnaround. I just don't ever see it. That's hopefully maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's too hard to like, especially since we have a hard time making up our minds. Sometimes I feel like it's kind of hard to get them in on it and like have them do quick changes like that. It kind of seems like more trouble than it's worth.
Yeah. And not only that, but obviously, it has ramifications for the other 99% of COD players. They want to know why, their guns are changing, and it turns out because, some professionals are bloody good with it. And that doesn't always translate to the main multiplayer. Like I remember talking in Ghost to a developer, and it's always the example I bring up is the Remington. The Remington was not in Publix the most used assault rifle. It just wasn't. There were a lot better spreads than other guns. It seemed pretty balanced that way, but all of pro players used it, right? That was the professional AR for good reason, because it was very efficient at what it did. But if you nerf that, or if you changed it, it takes a gun that's still not really being used a lot in the public space and basically makes it completely irrelevant. And obviously, devs don't want to do that. It is a double-edged sword.
Yeah, I didn't play too much Ghosts. What AR were they using if they weren't using the Remington?
I'll be honest with you, I can't remember that entire dev conversation, but I do remember there being a talk by the developers about how they were surprised that was the gun that they chose. Because so the developers know what kills the quickest, they know what has the lowest basic recoil, they have all the statistics, right? And they said they knew it wasn't, exceeding in any category. It didn't have the most ammo, it didn't kill in the fastest time, and it had more recoil than some other ARs. So you've got all these other guns that have either low recoil or higher TTK or better range or more ammo. And the pros weren't using those guns. They were using this gun, which was a little bit jack of all trades. Only had 20 rounds, if I remember correctly. But because it had a combination of manageable recoil from a professional player, it could hit hard and had very good range. They use that instead. But if you're a casual player and you can't control, a gun like a professional player, which a lot of us can't, I'll put myself in that bracket. It's fine. And you probably want more ammo than 20 rounds because you aren't going to hit continuously. They don't use it, so it doesn't get used as much, and it's not as effective outside of the realms of the pros. So that's a lesson I took from the developers. Going, he's right. That is a different thing. Like I've joked before, saying when I watch professional players like yourself, right? My guns do not work the same. My guns and your guns are not the same weapons, okay? Like, I watch you guys 3-bullet people and smash them, and I'm sitting there painting the scenery with bullet holes rather than the actual players.
Yeah.
And that's just something I think that people still underestimate about professional play. Like, it looks flashy and it looks good, but the actual, because Call of Duty's always been said to have a low skill curve, and in some ways, yeah, because anybody can kill anybody. But when you notice the actual skill of professional players that can shoot at that level, it's mind blowing.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot different in that like gap. Like, same thing too, like if real life friends kind of ask me like for my class because my class looks so good and then they use it, they're like, damn, like I'm not getting all the kills that you are. It's just, it's a little bit different. I disagree to an extent with the whole like I think there's a pretty decent skill gap, not just in terms of like gun skill, but in terms of just like positioning and setting up and things like that. Like obviously that takes a long time for people to like get used to and get good at.
Yeah.
But
No,
everybody can't kill everybody at some point or another.
yeah. No, I agree with that. I was more making a point like it's the well said thing about the skill curve in Call of Duty can be somewhat minimalized, especially at a professional level, right? We're talking small decision making. I've always said I consider one of the biggest thing at professional level is decision making, and then up there is probably positioning and comms, right? Because as well as I know, every professional player can shoot. They can all manage their recoil very, very well, and they all snap very, very well. There are some exceptional talents that just seem to have incredible centering and constantly do it, but by and large, a bad pro is still way better than anybody else, right? It just is. And then when you put into the competitive factor, it gets even worse. Like I can't read the game in game like a pro can. Out of the game, I can cast it. Oh, hindsight, I've got a fucking codcaster. I know what I should be doing here, right? Like I know you should be rotating, but in game, I'm like a fucking lost rabbit going, holy crap, where are they spawning? You know,
Yeah.
and it's but as a pro, that's second nature to you guys, and you're making those micro decisions over and over again, which is why Call of Duty are referred to as a twitch shooter. It's incredibly fast reflexes and basically micro decisions. No, you're tracking the other players, and that's why. And we'll tangent again here. We'll talk about 5v5 to 4v4. It's one of the reasons I think 4v4 is better because it makes a more consistent ability to track the teams and players and engage and make a more influential play than just in 5v5, which is just sprint, trade, slide, right? But anyway, what do you think of the 5v5 to 4v4?
5v5 to 4v4. I feel like if we were going to do 4v4, it probably should have been at the beginning of the franchise league. I don't know what
Yeah.
the point was of staying 5v5.
Um,
Um,
I
it's
kind of know.
them kind of like trying to follow like the kind of like a Counter-Strike type model with like 5 players, but I mean whatever. I don't think either 5v5 COD game played well. Um, I think it was kind of a little much to watch. And on top of that too, in 5v5, like you just have a lot of just people running around getting kills and like winning them games. In 4v4, your life is a lot more valuable. And there's one less person to get your trade. So I feel like there's a lot more thought that goes into it. Although I don't think switching to 4v4 right now, like during a pandemic, was the best thing to do.
Yeah.
I think it should have been pushed back another year, if anything. But I don't think cutting 20% of the jobs during a pandemic was the best thing for most people.
Certainly wasn't fun for. I don't know that much. One of those ones where you're like, well, I've struggled to make it into the top minute percentile of all players. And now it's a lot harder, especially, some teams are looking at the amateur scene and go, well, I could take a good amateur rather than a pro. And I can, and basically, here's the weird thing, and I don't know how much the community knows this, or you have from the background, but it's been a bit of a race to the bottom with some professionals because the first year, salaries were bloody good in the CDL, very, very good. And then this year, on average, obviously some players have re-signed on the current contract. It has gone down significantly, and I'm not going to ask you about your own team or whatever, but it's mad. It's bad. Obviously, I can't imagine how stressed the Discord conversations you've had with pro players, and I imagine there's been a lot of talk in the background amongst just players themselves about holy crap, this is stressful.
Yeah, I have heard it went down quite a bit, but I mean, we're playing a video game and the amount of money we're making, I feel like you can't really be mad about.
Yeah,
It's just like the only thing is like obviously we're all competitive with each other and hearing that your peers are making, substantially more than you on certain teams kind of
yeah.
probably sucks for some people, but I'm not too worried about it. I was happy last year with what I was making. I'm happy this year with what I'm making, so no complaints for me.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. Like it's like I said, it's been a super interesting off season, and I'm going to go back to your career now because if we go down this route anymore, I'm going to have to ask you about your team change, and we need to get to the present before we can talk about that, right? So where we left off was basically stage. So here's the thing, and this is why I really want to speak to you about this year, right? And I don't want you to take offense from what I'm going to say next, but how the fuck did you win that World Championship? Because that's essentially where we're going, right? Seattle Open, you left EUNited, you went to EG, and you did come second at the Seattle Open, right?
hmm
Very good start for a team. It's always said that a team, I think it was actually JCap that said this. He says, by and large, a team needs to make a final on their first run out if you think they're going to win a championship, right? And if you look at it, he's not wrong. It statistically happens more often than not. But obviously, after some bad results, you ended up leaving EG and going to EUnited and going to EG. Take me through that team change period before we go to the big one.
So I wasn't even aware I was getting dropped until I heard it from the person that was replacing me in the first place.
Oh,
I heard talks of it a little bit. Obviously, there's more that goes into it, but EG is like the only team that's making a change. So naturally, as soon as I got dropped off United, went in tens, dropped 50 every single map for a week straight. Um,
The old way of getting picked up, I like it.
yeah, pretty much like there's obviously like issues on our United team, but I'm on a team of twins in Clayster who has a million followers. So I mean, like it's a no brainer. I'm the odd man out. So get on the EG, and we were good. Definitely, I obviously like playing with all of them, or else I wouldn't have played with them again.
Yeah.
And we ended up having that little dry spell in the middle part of the end of the season, but we got it all
Yeah.
figured out. Our
Yeah.
S&D was actually so good. We had all these smokes that we used that by the time the league came around, everybody had learned all of our smokes and was executing our own strats against us. So we had a huge like S&D dry spell because we didn't have any new stuff.
Okay,
So
that's
it's
an
kind
interesting
of
factoid.
yeah. You can pull up VODs from Seattle, watch our search, and then watch VODs of other teams for the next events. And we literally got all of our strats stripped right off of us. And no,
I
not
mean,
great.
that makes a lot of sense, right? Because obviously you went from second to top 16,
Yeah.
and then ninth to 10th, stage two, which was, if I remember correctly, was that weird thing. Like it wasn't even that far away. I was actually a month away from the World Championship. But I know I was at this World Championship. I know that you guys were not on, sorry, the radar. You were not on the radar of any analyst or professional or whatever for winning this event. And I remember sitting in the final, watching it, going, I don't actually know how EG have got here. I haven't watched a lot of their events so far. They're just in the grand final, right? And nobody had predicted it. Like nobody. So let's jump into that because it's very important. You are a world champion. Let's
So
let's jump into that event.
So basically, us not qualifying for playoffs was kind of a blessing. It gave us a ton of time to reinvent all of our search stuff, kind of prepare for all the teams that we're going to play. Um, Came back with all new S&D stuff. I think we maybe lost like 2 S&Ds or something through that entire event, 3 maybe. Um, S&D was perfect. We had a bad run in our pools in the first place. We lost to a team we shouldn't have lost to, which put us in a really bad spot. Had a 3-0 optic and knocked them out to win. If they won one map, we were out of the tournament. Boom, 3-0
Yeah,
them.
I remember that was
We
like one of the Aches curses. That was
yeah.
always interesting.
And then we kind of breezed through until top 6. Went down 2-0 against Envy, reverse swept them. Played TK for what was it, top 3.
Yeah.
Beat them, and then we ended up playing them in the grand final. Lost our first best of 5, won the second best of 5 with ease, and boom.
World champion.
Yep.
Was that like at what point in that tournament? Because it's always difficult. Whenever you say a player, "Oh, we're always going to win it," you're always going to win. But was there a point in the World Championship where you thought, "We are clicking. This is going to fucking work"?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, the first time we played TK, we thought we were gonna win. After we reverse swept Envy, we thought we were gonna win. I think the only doubt we had that entire event was when we had a 3-0 optic, and even in that case, once we won the hard point, we knew we were winning this. They weren't gonna beat us in search, and they weren't gonna beat us in 4 CTF. So once they blew, and that wasn't even like an extremely strong map for us in the first place, triple altar, and we beat them on that. So it was over from that point on.
I remember. By the way, I remember that, and I remember the absolute chaos backstage when you guys did it because people were like, obviously, Optic, massive brand for Call of Duty, um, and you guys put them out in the groups. By the way, first time that happened, people were losing their freaking minds over the fact that that had happened to, like I said, the biggest brand in Call of Duty. It was something like, oh shit, we've just lost a good 30,000 or probably 30% of our potential peak viewership when that team ended up dropping out. But I'm guessing, it's. Do you think that game specifically, because it is one of the more famous games of Call of Duty history, do you think that they were probably under a lot of stress themselves? Do you think pressure was really on them, knowing they had to win a map as well, and you took advantage of that, or were you under a lot of pressure? Like, what was the feeling when you sat down to play that team?
We knew how good we were, and we literally just didn't want to go out like that. Obviously, they were under a ton of pressure. Obviously, like the worst year you've seen from Scump. They had a kind of new team. Um, I'm sure they knew too. Once they lost that hard point, they were in serious trouble. And we wouldn't even be having this talk right now if we hadn't 3-0'd them there. So that's just a prime
Yeah.
example. Like we would have just went out in groups and it would have been whatever. Cool Optic got in. They got through groups and it wouldn't have mattered. because we got knocked out. So, we had to do it to them. Kind of make people remember that match, make people remember that event. So,
Yeah. No, yeah, 100%. Like I said, it's such an interesting. So winning a world championship, then, it is the biggest thing you can do as a Call of Duty player. You go down as a ring bearer, one of the very few. Your name can never be forgotten or erased over or anything because everybody knows the world champions, right, in Call of Duty. And I was asked this question recently by other industry experts. They said, how important is the world championship in Call of Duty? And I went, way more important than you think it would be. Every event during the year will pale in comparison to COD champs by a serious degree. Now, you've put yourself in a position to win a world championship, Silly. What was it like actually playing in that grand final, knowing what's at stake?
I mean, it was awesome. The fact that we even got there in the first place, we're really excited about. And I feel like the pressure was a lot more on TK than it was on us because they were expected, to smoke us. Like,
Yeah.
especially after they won the first best of five, they were expected to smoke us. And on top of that too, they had momentum on their side, and we went into their best map in the first best of five, and they just kind of came out flat. Um, the confetti hitting your face is definitely a really good feeling. A lot of
There's
people.
a lot of it as well. That was a particularly big conveyor explosion. I remember that. I've got pictures from the crowd.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's awesome. As long as you're not, getting second place and getting hit by it, I guess it's really fun to be a part of.
Was it? What was the afterglow like then? Because obviously I've never won a world championship myself, so I can't really attest to what it's like. But all of a sudden, you are the very focal point of everything Call of Duty esports. All the social media, all the fans, all the interviews, all Call of Duty's media and PR machines. What I could ask you this: what actually happens when you win a world championship? So the game ends, you've won it. Are you then like? Does somebody usher you into the right places? Do you practice for the trophy? Like what actually happens from end of game for the next I don't know hour?
You basically get taken around to do different kinds of media, meet with people. We obviously had a meet up. We met up with our wives, girlfriends right after we won, and then went to the back. But yeah, you kind of just get dragged around everywhere because everybody wants pictures of you guys and everything, pictures with the trophy and pictures with the ring. Definitely a really cool experience. I'd like to do it again someday. Hopefully on land if it ever returns.
That's interesting. That's always interesting. I always. So I know from my point of view, I actually think it was that stage as well. I had to do stand-ins. So they do practice. The production does practices for the finals, right? Like it's all done in their mind with marks, and when you guys walk out, that's all practiced. I was one of the guys because our rehearsals ended early that had to go stand in and pretend to be a player and do a player walkout and all this shit for that stage. So it's always curious to me. Like I'm always sitting there going, what if a player drops this trophy or picks it up too soon or because they all try to hit. Obviously, I don't know if you know this from a player point of view, but they do specific things at specific times. Like players are supposed to, as a team, go to the trophy and then lift it up, and then pyrotechnics goes off, and the casters are supposed to hit the same beat. Like you're supposed to do. How do I explain this from a production point of view? When you lift the trophy, that's when the call is made. So when you hear the world champions, and that's it's all supposed to go together, right? Problem is you know the casters, you know the production team, and you know the stage. We don't know who is going to win at that time and what they are going to do when it all occurs. And obviously, from your point of view, I'm guessing some of it you probably in your memory is a little bit blurry or a little bit of a haze because the adrenaline's pumping. You've got thousands of screaming fans, confetti's going off in your face, a lot of noise, and it's one of the best moments of your life. So for me, it's obviously something I'll never experience, but it's always cool to hear, players' points of view of what they were thinking during that time.
We were kind of just I don't know. I was just kind of ready to pick up the trophy, which is very heavy, I might add. It might very possible to drop. You definitely drop it on someone's head or just drop it in general. That'd probably be really hurt the moment a little bit, if you dropped and it broke or something. But we were just super excited to prove everybody wrong. And Adam's first championship was a world championship and he got the MVP, so it's probably even even better for him. But yeah,
um,
it's just the best feeling in the world being a COD player.
Yeah, and like I said, obviously it is the be all and end all competitive Call of Duty. It just is. One of the interesting fact about that trophy, from what I understand, and I think I read this somewhere, that it's like 60 to 80 grand's worth that trophy, which is why nobody got to take it home. It's like it was like designed by somebody, and all the stuff that's in it is so crazily expensive, which is why they started just putting the names on it. Obviously, it's gone now. I don't know what's happened to it. It's probably somewhere in Activision's head office, because obviously we've moved on to the CDL trophy, which is much more manageable for then. But yeah, that trophy is supposedly crazy expensive. I know when they first unveiled it, we all messed around with it. They put it in a little room, and everyone took pictures with it. But yeah, that's why nobody's like supposed to touch it or mess with it at all.
Yeah, that
They
thing
even have
is
a
pretty
guy
sweet.
designated to cleaning it, like at events. There's already somebody who's supposed to make sure that trophy is clean.
Yeah, I mean it is pretty sweet looking. I could definitely see that.
I guess at this point, then we have to talk about moving on to Black Ops 4, where you admittedly ended up changing teams. What happened? What
Oh,
said?
going from EG to Envy.
Yeah,
Pretty much we couldn't get a fifth that we wanted onto EG. EG was a great org to us. We liked being on EG. We would have liked to stay on EG. We just couldn't get a fifth that we wanted. We wanted like a fast sub player, and all the good fast sub players we wanted were all locked down on teams. So ultimately we had to go somewhere to get the fifth we wanted.
that makes sense. That makes a good amount of sense here. Obviously, as we go into it, and the very first event of Black Ops 4, Las Vegas Open, great event by the way. Not so much for you guys, obviously top 12. Was that just teething issues with the team, or kind of what happened to? Was it a meta change? Was it just Black Ops 4? Like, how did you feel going into Black Ops 4 with this squad, and what happened?
I feel like going into Black Ops 4 after playing World War II all year was kind of just like not great. It was definitely really fast for the team we had, and I feel like Kyler or Hugh was definitely on like a different pace than the rest of us. So it definitely, we're definitely a little offbeat a lot of the time.
Yeah, I can see that, right? I can see, your results never really picked up until maybe CWL London, I think, because Fort
Yeah,
Worth was the same story, at top 12. What went better at London? Because I can see a team change here, which does seem to be a pattern with
yeah.
your career. So going from Fort Worth to London, talk me through it.
Basically, we're worth the London. I mean, we had a team change, nice little honeymoon period. We were good for that event. Um, Decimate definitely played really well that event to help us out. Pharaoh was doing good too. And then I think after that event, we ran into the same kind of issues. We had some personality issues, people clashing with each other. And, being like me being the person that's never involved in any of these like player issues is really annoying because I'm on the outside of it and it directly
Yeah.
affects me when people are fighting with each other or don't like each other. So it just kind of sucks.
Yeah, I can get. Let's talk a little bit. I'm going on another tangent again as we walk through your career. Let's talk about interpersonal team issues, because clearly you've had some over the years. Most pro players have, and it goes to varying degrees. What do you think of, like, especially the new generation, where we have more coaching staff, more infrastructure, more professionals to speak to out of it, and obviously pros are even held to an even higher standard now than they were a year ago. Do you think it's going to get better? How have you dealt with it in your career? Are there any notable ones that have happened that you can talk about?
Um, Man, there's too many to even count, to be honest. I don't want to name players because I don't want them to see that. But on every one of the teams we've talked about, there's been some kind of clash between players, and it's never been me, and it's never been with Adam, and it's never been with Alex. So there's always some little feud between players going on that's caused a loss or two or a bad event or two at one time or another. It just always happens. It's happened a lot
What
to me
happened?
specifically. So.
So, is it a chicken or egg thing? Like, what happens first? Is it the conflicts that cause the loss, or is it loss that causes the conflicts?
Um, it's the conflicts. It's usually conflicts that cause a loss. I've lost maps. I lost a series one time where I was up 2-0 because people started bickering about one play.
Oh
I've lost an
no.
S&D map up 5-1 because somebody made a different play. Like it's mind-blowing stuff, but it still happens. Definitely not fun. It usually is something little that just tilts somebody, and then it just evolves into this like huge thing. And
Do you think that could that'll get better now that there's support staff to maybe take the weight off into player conflicts and stuff? Because that's something that people have been talking about recently. Is realistically, players should, the coaches are trying to do more in terms of solving disputes and also bringing it down to let's talk about this at a professional level in VOD review rather than you just calling this guy names during it, because obviously people get very defensive when called out by another player. Always happens, right? Doesn't matter what player it happens to. If I'm doing well and I see you make a misplay, then I'm just going to say something to you. Won't be helpful. Probably won't be constructive. But I'd say if I'm a fiery pro player, obviously not. But I just find it, especially this year. I mean, it still happened. It still happened in Modern Warfare. I know it did. I've heard it has with multiple teams, but it should technically be getting better.
with coaches, it should be getting better. Doesn't mean it's like going to for sure because obviously you can't make people like each other.
Yeah.
Um, and if you have two people that dislike each other, what are you supposed to do? Do you bench them both or like
Well, technically,
like
if I'm being perfectly frank here, then and this is going to sound harsh, but it's not directed at you, just pro players in general. It's your job. Get on with it. Like
yeah,
that's the truth of the situation. Right?
I
They're being paid a
agree.
lot of money here. I don't. If you're a franchise, I don't give a shit if you like each other. Personally, honest with you, I care about whether or not you can play and win and do the stuff I need you to do. And I think players at some point have to realize that you're that spats and personal friendships don't mean anything compared to results and what you need to do for your job.
Yep, and with some players, they're aware of that you stick it out and try and win with your teammates, but some people definitely let their personal thoughts of people um factor in a lot of their decision making.
Yeah.
So, maybe someday everybody will be on the same page, but as of now, I don't think that's happening.
No, I can. I see that. Yeah, it'll get better. I have faith it'll get better. As it becomes more normal place to essentially not have control of the teams, because that was always one of the issues, right? Is that players make teams, and therefore, if players don't get along, then they're making the team. So it's always going to be a bit of a cluster. But I'm hoping that once it kind of goes away from that, it'll get a bit better. But we have to move on now, unfortunately, to the end of your Black Ops 4 season. And I say unfortunately because it wasn't a good time for at least placings, right? Anaheim went badly and it didn't improve to the World Championship. But we'll take on Anaheim first. After London, you were flying high. What happened?
Teammates hated each other by the time Anaheim came around.
that ties in. That ties into the topic quite nicely.
I
Um.
uh I had told my fiance not to go to Anaheim. I was like, "Don't
Oh
go to Anaheim."
wow.
I was like, "There, just don't go to the event. It's not going to go well." Because I had already knew with how things were going in scrims that it was not going to go well.
Jesus, that is a bold statement to go into an event with.
I
Um,
mean, another thing, man, just people going at it that can't get over it, and that's what happens.
so that was essentially chalked way before you even got there. And obviously we now move on to another world championship. Always a great point of conversation. It didn't improve by the sound. Is that what happened? Because it was 2 months between Anaheim and the world championship. Was this conflict still going on?
Well, the conflict was resolved, but we had a newer team.
Yeah,
Um, I in the mix of like around like Miami and champs, I was trying to go to another team. Wasn't allowed to. Kind of got stuck on my team, and then we were looking for players to pick up because we needed someone to run a grapple saw because obviously Hugh went to Splice.
yeah.
Um, so we ended up keeping one of our players, and then I somehow got finessed. I was probably the best Maddox on our team. I somehow got finessed into running a grapple sog for champs. Um,
A lot of players, by the way, when I spoke about this, don't like running that grapple sorg. It's not a favorite of players.
I should not have been the one baiting on that team by any means. Um, by any means at all, I should not have been baiting for anybody. Um, But I was, and ultimately, we pretty much had a free road to top 6 at that
Uh-huh.
champs, and we blew it. We lost game 5 to Units, so kinda, like, blew our run. We could have breezed through the top 6. We had beat Wreck and Pools, like, we were on a decent track, we just messed it up, so
That's fair
how
enough.
it goes. A
Yeah,
whole year of people going at it with each other is kinda how it goes.
yeah, and I suppose now we can finally move on to the most present season. Okay, we'll get out of this. Obviously, Rostermania happened in a massive way. Everybody basically went, we're going to go somewhere new. You went to the ROKKR, Minnesota ROKKR. Looked like a great team. You guys kind of certainly made an impression. Because people like the branding, people liked everything about them. People like the fact you had the very first event. People liked even like the owner. People like Gary V. I was a big fan of Gary V. Going into it. But let's talk about that team being built and how that all occurred for you and generally, you're happy with it. What happened? Why that team?
Um, ROKKR is a great org, was happy to represent them. In terms of team building, me, GodRx, and Assault kind of went over there together in the first place, and then we're just looking at what kind of subs we wanted. So we ended up getting Asim and Alex based on like everybody that was on the market.
Yeah.
Obviously, good team on LAN, good team in the beginning of the year. With the online switch, I think some people were kind of expecting it to go back to regular events. Obviously, it didn't. Feel like there was a little bit of lack of effort in terms of like playing online or practice after that. Obviously, it picked up towards the end of the year, but we kind of just never recovered from a bad online start. Like obviously after the Dallas event,
Uh huh.
and playing from Minnesota when other teams are in Texas and wherever else definitely isn't ideal. And we just a lot of like a lot of teams. If I had to like say one thing, is that people tend to play a lot more confident when they're at home rather than an event because people are worried about making a mistake. Is it going to cost them? Like, don't play super, super fast. When everybody's at home, their mom's bringing them breakfast. They're in their room nice and confident.
Uh huh.
They tend to just sprint and try and gun everybody. And with our team pretty much having 2 main ARs, made us get outpaced by literally everyone we played.
Yeah. I mean, being perfectly honest, you can kind of see exactly what happened. When it all went down, just on the spreadsheet of where you've placed. But ROKKR, like I will say this, right? Looking at the first few events, people were unsure roughly how your team was going to go. Right, stocks weren't super high for the ROKKR, but as soon as those events started to start, right, Justin, everyone was like, "Holy shit! This is a bloody good team. This is a team we want to keep an eye on. This is a team that we are hyping up." You had a couple of top 3 finishes, a couple of top 2 finishes, and obviously there is just a, and it sucks to say this, but as you could tell exactly when it switched, right? As soon as it switched, things just started to go badly for you. Did this put any pressure on you as players or the team? Was there frustrations aired out? Because obviously, COVID's hit. You now don't have the opportunity to go face to face. The whole world has changed. The whole world is basically in chaos, essentially. Obviously, it's not fires in the street, but it is very, very, chaotic all over the place, and things have changed dramatically. What were the feelings in the camp?
There's definitely frustrations, kind of just like trying to pinpoint issues and figure out what's going on. It definitely like even when we ended up like replacing GodRx, I don't think it definitely wasn't a one person issue. There was a lot of issues that went into how we were playing, and I feel like it just like we would improve and fix something, and then it would happen again. It was just like such a bad cycle of things. I've never dealt with anything like that in my life. Um, the ability for us to improve on things was pretty much non-existent through the last half of the year.
Was that part of the players? Do you think that could have been better? Like if you'd all managed to pull together in one direction, or do you think that maybe it was one of these ones where, because I have no players do this, just chalk it essentially, just like I don't know if I should put in full effort here, and it's easy to do when you're at home, right? Because like you said, there isn't the same onus on. I have to sit there and look at this guy in the face. I'm at home talking to him through a microphone. It's very easy to be confident when you are that person.
Yeah, there's definitely a chance that happened, but I mean, is anybody actually going to say that? No. So you kind of just wonder if they're mentally checked out, or if they're actually just getting smoked, or if there's a reason they're getting smoked, or reason they're putting in less effort. It's kind of just like the entire time just trying to pinpoint issues, and there's no way to actually confirm if that's actually what's going on or not.
How was it? How did the team try to deal with this then? About not having good results. Were there extra VOD reviews? Did you guys sit down and try to change pacing or figure out to deepen the map pool? Like, what was the process, especially at a professional level, to start trying to overcome this bad run? Because at this point, at some point, there must have been a realization. It's like, oh crap, we are probably like a top 8 team at the moment, or a top 6 team at best, right? And that's never
Um,
what you want to be in a 12-person league.
I mean, we did everything. We did VODs every night. Um, we watched over different POVs of gameplay, had different people stream, watched it back. We really just like once we felt like we fixed one thing, there was just another issue, and it was just never ending. All kinds of VODs. We went over everybody's like POVs. We expanded our map pool. We changed up our maps. We changed, we switched around roles, and just literally just couldn't get any better. So
Just
how it goes.
yeah, I can kind of say that, and I suppose like the problem is with the homestand series. Obviously, it's a very different format. Um, but the as we kind of move on now to the crowning of the Modern Warfare season, essentially the World Championship. It is the time for redemption. It is the time where teams, because essentially if you do well there, then the rest of the team can be fine, right? The rest of the year can be fine. I think the Ravens, had a big uptick at the end because they came fourth at champs. Unfortunately, kind of not what happened for you guys at the World Championship. Obviously, things had to change for the World Championship. It was not a normal World Championship in anybody's mind. But I am curious. Did at any point did it feel like the same feeling as previous World Championships? Did you get any of that like holy shit, this is the big one?
Um, I did, but I even from our first match, the things we had to do wrong for us to lose literally just were like a punch in the stomach. Like I could not believe at the end of the game, after we've all been playing the same game for this long, these are the plays we're still making, and I was just like, wow, like it was impossible for us to learn how to do things differently, and I would literally just like it was just painful. It's a pain. Definitely the least amount of fun I've had in any world championship I've played in for sure.
Yeah, I can see how that would be frustrating, right? Because you don't, as a pro player, you don't know how many World Championships you're going to get. Like you just don't. And it is the pinnacle of it. Like if you get to play in 5 or 6, that's a bloody good result for a career. And you don't want to waste any single one of them because any single one of them could be another ring. And like you said, as soon as you get that second ring, that's even more godhood status. And if you get 3, of course, then you join the very few. But that kind of started off really weird for the ROKKR, right? Because they looked fantastic. You guys looked great. The ROKKR brand went fucking bananas. People love the team. They love the branding, everything about it. And then it basically fell off a fucking cliff. It was that from your point of view more than anything else. Was that something that stressed you out more? Because here's another thing that I've been looking at recently. Pro players' girlfriends on the timeline. They don't leak a lot of information, but they sometimes give you an insight into what that player is feeling. What was the feeling for you in terms of like dealing with that on a day-to-day basis, not winning, not having good results, and the feedback from socials and stuff?
Oh man, I mean, it's got to be the worst year by far for me to deal with. Being away from home, and feeling like I'm trying to do more for the team than other people are to try and make us better, and nothing changing, and just at least when you have events you can go to an event and like hope like everybody gets in the same mindset and you can kind of fry, but
Yeah.
when you're in the same repetitive cycle playing online every day and nothing is changing, it was literally like mental torture.
I'm guessing it's much harder to progress or practice because I've always said one of the things you need to like practice. Like 10 hours of practice is great, but 10 hours of good practice is better. Um,
Yeah.
and that can be difficult here. I suppose it's one of these things like even with the structure that players have had this year, I suppose if you can't get somebody to click in and take it on because you are just on a Discord playing the game, old school stuff rather than the facilities and that. It must just be frustrating. You must be like, I can't fucking do anything here. Short of sending a hitman around to this guy's house, there's not a lot I can do.
Yeah, I mean, you really can't. There's not much you can do, and on top of that, like your practice, you're just like sitting at a setup every day, and then when you go play the tournament, you're also just sitting at a setup again. So it's like you go from a scrim to a more important scrim, and it's kind of a weird feeling.
Yeah, no, I 100%, 100%. I get that. I get that. And also, I got to say, double sides because I was very excited to see more of the ROKKR facilities. I don't know how much of that was done by the time you were there and stuff because there was a big kind of noise made about the facilities, and obviously the ROKKR share an ownership with the Vikings, and I'm like, wow, this is going to be great. They're going to have NFL stuff. They know how to do this shit, right? Was any of that done before COVID ruined everything?
Oh yeah, it was done at the beginning of the year.
Okay.
We actually at the first event we were bringing teams over the facility to scrim. Um, You know, so that was definitely cool. That was like the only other teams we ever had in there was like before Minnesota. So it sucks we didn't get to use it with other teams more as like a land kind of thing, like
Yeah.
land practice, but still cool.
Was that like a preferred thing for you, like having that sort of facility to go to, having the ability to go, well, this is now a professional workplace. We've got, but take me through what was in the facility, because there's a lot of people saying, oh, we've got a facility now, which could just be 4 or 5 setups and some consoles, right? That could be a facility. People call that a facility, but what goes into a facility in your mind, and what did ROKKR do?
So our facility, we basically we have our giant scrim room. There's 10 setups,
Yeah.
wall to wall. There's like a media room where we get like pictures taken and stuff like that. We have a giant theater room. We have all the office stuff of the employees that work there, like all their stuff right outside of there. We have a kitchen. We have a big like lobby area with like a TV and couches and stuff. We have a player lounge in the back. We've got a locker room, bunk beds in there.
So there's bunk
Uh,
beds in there.
yeah, it's cool. Hey, you're in Minnesota, man. You get snowed in or something. You're
Oh,
there
okay.
late, you
That
get snowed, and
that
it's
makes
dark.
more sense. I was like,
Yeah.
well, players just going for naps during the day. I was like, that'd be
Oh
great.
yeah,
To be fair.
they've definitely been utilized by certain people for sure. Seen them, seen people sleeping in there.
Any of your teammates or just other people in the facilities?
Yeah, it even exceed. I think like one of the last times we're there, he's taking a little nap in there.
Oh, that's see that I like, right? That is the next level of Call of Duty professionalism for me. Is having the ability to make pro players more focused by actually having good quality of life. Because sitting in a chair and like the old stuff, like sitting in a gaming chair for 10 hours, 12 hours a day, you get up at 4 p.m., you go to bed at 4 a.m., wonder why everyone's tired, and you're just smashing caffeine down your face, right? And you never go outside. All that, like the stereotypical old Call of Duty grind. Hated it. This sounds like a much healthier way of doing things with segregated areas, places for players to actually relax rather than just sitting in the same chair watching YouTube videos. And I'm guessing, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'm guessing it was probably a better experience for you as well.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely is. It's enjoyable to like scrim in the same place every day. I feel like you definitely get a lot more done. You don't have to worry about people like sitting at home being on their phones or dozing off when you're going over stuff. You can kind of see everybody and what they're doing and make sure everybody's paying attention. And especially with like criticism, if you can like see how people are talking to you, maybe people won't be so on like the defense
Yeah.
when people are talking to them. That's always a plus too.
No, I 100% agree with that. I can vouch for that myself as well. I know I've had heated arguments with people online through a microphone that just wouldn't have happened face to face because body language is a big thing, and you can kind of de-escalate a lot quicker and say, "Hey, look, let's actually just work together on this and move." Right? Like we're here. We've got to be here for the next 4 hours. We're working on something, and obviously, I think that'll help. I'm looking forward to it. I hope every team has a really good facility. I hope they do good work with it. I still want to see more sports nutritionists in, and I guess now we need to talk about your team change and the off season in a little bit more depth because we have come right up to the very present time. Off season, obviously, ROKKR making some changes. We went from 5 to 4v4, and a lot of teams took this opportunity to basically just pull the ripcord. Um, you said it was stressful. How stressful are we talking?
I mean, it was extremely stressful. There's obviously like there's probably like 40 players fighting for like even right now there's literally probably 30 or so players fighting for like whatever 5 to 7 spots are left. It's just like it doesn't get more stressful than that. And your stock is kind of determined by how your team does, and especially another reason I don't like 5v5. I could have 4 people doing their best, and if I have one person that's kind of slacking off a little bit, it's
Yeah.
going to hurt all of us. I feel like it's a little easier to manage in 4v4. Um, you know, I, but 5 people is just too many people to manage, and that's too many people that have to be on the same page. So, hopefully have another, my last 2 4v4 years been good. Hopefully another good 4v4 year, keep my stock, nice and higher up, and don't ever have to go through an off season like that ever again.
No, I can see that. Obviously, your no team, Apathy, Assault, Vivid, and yourself. I have to ask this: how does it feel going into the LA Guerillas? Because the greatest of first years, right? That organization had a few issues, player wise. People weren't entirely on the branding. There's 2 LA teams. I mean, fortunately, the other LA team was also kind of hated brand wise because they had the cursed brand, which may be the better brand again. We'll get to that later on, but if you go into a team like this with a history and a pedigree, and you know that you have to basically build it back up, is there any like pressure on you from that regard of, okay, this franchise, it needs essentially like defibrillating, it needs restarting and bringing back to life?
I mean, it's only up from here for LAG. Like obviously, like they finished 12th.
Yeah.
We're going to go up from there regardless. So kind of not super worried about it. Obviously they pretty much pulled the plug on their entire roster as well. The only person they kept is Vivid, and he was their hardest worker, their S&D superstar. So I feel like we're not super worried about it. We're just excited to hopefully give them some hope.
It's good. I have noticed you've stuck with a very similar color scheme as well. Like, probably didn't have to worry too much about branding
Mm,
wise. Going, yeah,
yeah.
it's purple again. We can move on with this ourselves. But no, I thought it was interesting. Like, obviously, I saw it got announced, and the funny thing was, obviously, I think I asked you on before you announced LAG. I was like, oh, I want to speak to Silly anyway. Um, and you're like, perfect timing, perfect timing. He's just moved teams. We can talk about that at length here. And how many meetings and stuff have you had with the staff over at LAG? What has been the reception for you as a player?
Um, I mean, we there's been lots of back and forth. We obviously flew out there to film our announcement video, and I kind of met everybody personally. And some of our players and subs met for the first time, so that's always cool. But yeah, they've been really hands on with everything. I feel like you know, they're going to be a lot more hands on this year in terms of their social and with their players and things like that too. So that's definitely good for us.
Awesome. All right, well, let's go into some quick fire questions. Okay? Because there are 2 good questions I like to ask everybody, and I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I know one of these is a super softball. Best teammate. Yeah, best teammate throughout your career.
I have a few. Well, we'll just say Assault because he's on my team.
Yeah, I was going to say you've been with him a lot, like a lot. It's a significant portion of your career for that one. And this is a more difficult one. This is not the softball. Worst teammate.
Um, can be worse like because if we're talking can be a good teammate, can be a bad teammate, I would probably say Aches.
Oh wow, okay. I can see that from him. Very
Yeah,
passionate man, right? Very passionate man.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, I can see that as well. I suppose the other side of that is biggest regret, from your career so far. Like, what is one decision or one moment you're like, oh crap, I never want to relive that, or I never want to do that again, or I definitely made the wrong.
I mean, there's a ton. Definitely like not like quitting at the end of Black Ops 2 into Ghost was definitely a really bad choice. I feel like that was a big game for a lot of people, and I feel like that game definitely would have fit my play style. Wish I would have played Ghost.
Yeah, that's a really good answer. Actually, a lot of people don't have that. This next one, super easy because I think I know what it's going to be. But best moment in Call of Duty esports.
Winning champs.
Yeah, that was good. That was pretty much an easy one, right? It's most people's. It's most people's ones to go through. And then the rest, and then the next question I have to ask is not a quick fire one because it is a little bit more in depth. What do you think of Cold War?
I think the base of the game is pretty good.
Yeah.
I hope there's some better maps on the horizon. Obviously, the ones we have right now aren't fantastic. And I personally want the slide nerfed into the ground.
Oh, okay. Is it because they've changed it 3 times now, right? They've changed it three
Yeah,
times. It's still very quick.
it is still quick. It's obviously not nearly as long as it was before. But I would like it to be like a ghost slide where it's just used to like maneuver away
Uh-huh.
rather than sliding into gunfights and sliding into people and things like that. I feel like Cold War is definitely a game that shouldn't have a slide like that, just based on how it looks.
Uh-huh.
It definitely takes away from the traditional Black Ops feel. So I really hope they patch that up a little bit.
So this has been a hot topic of conversation on the timeline, and a lot of players are saying it here. But I suppose for people who aren't at the level you are, why is it such a mechanical problem in the game at the moment? Because we've had quick slides, before, and we've had all kinds of mechanics. Why is it such an issue at a professional level?
Um, because obviously like the slide kind of gets abused, and if you have people that are really really good with their movement, just being good at sliding is going to get you a lot of kills. Um, and also, which we won't have to really deal with anymore. When you're on console, there's a lot of like cameraing
Oh,
where you can
okay.
like slide around a corner and they'll see you before you see them. PC should fix that with the better frames and stuff, but it just kind of makes for a lot of inconsistent gameplay in my opinion.
Okay. No, I think that's a great answer, and I suppose also to go with the PC change, hopefully we get a kind of a tick upgrade in terms of Call of Duty, so we get better. So, have you played much on PC? Have you gone over to PC and enjoyed it? Like,
Yeah, I played a bit on PC. It definitely feels better than it does on console for sure.
uh,
Um, Very refreshing too in terms of like playing on. I mean, the PlayStation's so far behind. Like as of right now, like technology wise, like I
yeah.
can't believe we played on that thing for so long. It is bad.
Are you one of these players who's bought yourself some sort of super rig?
I have two pretty good computers. I'm definitely not going to spend $1,500 on a graphics card.
Yeah, I
Um,
I don't know why players have done that. They've gone way overboard. Just to get so. It's because obviously I've been talking about the timeline right now, and I've seen players buy it. And you know what? If you're earning a bag, do whatever you want. But also at the same time, I'm sitting there going, if you just bought a reasonable computer, like you can go to 144 hertz. You really want to go to 240. I feel like it's a bit more inconsistent, and you'd spend a lot more money. But you could save easily a grand or so and have an outrageous PC. And then if you need to upgrade in 2 years, then that's an extra grand you save. You can do it again. Like technology will increase as well. I was just curious because I know a lot of people are going and go, right, that's it, give me everything. I don't know anything about PCs, but I want it. I want.
yeah, and I feel like if we have events, I feel like they're probably going to put us all on. I doubt they're giving us computers with 3080s in them and like
uh,
completely maxed out. So I assume we're all going to be our computers at home would probably be better than the ones that we play on at the actual
yeah,
events. So that does make a lot of sense to me personally, if that's the case.
yeah. I mean, I spoke about this. Realistically, a lot of pros will be aiming for 240 because, like I said, they're just going to put money into it, just throw money at it until it works. But you are right, and I think if we're being honest, 144 hertz and 144 hertz panel is basically the standard, and I think that's what pros are going to expect here. I don't think we're going to see 3090s in every PC. 3070s, probably. Great card when it comes out in the benchmarks by the look of it. 3080s, also probably same. If, and this is a big if everybody can get them at the moment. They are rare, and obviously going into the league, I'm curious when they bring out the PC specs because I reckon obviously they're just going to have the same PC spec. By the way, this is what we're doing. This is our standard for the year. This is our standard PC, and here's our official monitor. Because I can't actually remember what monitor they were played on this year.
The Ben Q, what is it? The two or the Aces 24H or whatever it is,
I
something
can't.
like that.
I don't know what the refresh rate of that is. I never actually bothered looking. Because obviously it doesn't matter for the console. It doesn't need to go above 60.
Oh, we were on a 60.
Yeah, and obviously that's going to have to change because people aren't going to be playing on the 60 hertz monitor, right? They're just not going to.
Nope.
All right, let's do a couple more questions, and I think we can wrap this up because it's been a great chat about your career. Favorite memory from the Modern Warfare season?
Probably the Minnesota home event. Actually having like a home field advantage and having like fans, because the only people that have ever felt that are like Optic that have the whole crowd cheering
Yeah.
for them and stuff. So it's definitely cool to be a part of something like that. Definitely my favorite memory.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that was actually a great point of the year, and that was the first time like a lot of the negative people about homestands were like, "Oh, this does actually seem to be working in some way that we want it to." And it kind of goes on to this next question, right? Blues for Life, who thanks for the prime earlier. I guess I missed a lot of the episode, but what improvements do you want for I'm guessing it's CDL's tournament league format. Like, what do you think can be improved from the current Modern Warfare system to next year? I know that there have been changes, or at least rumored changes, and I don't know what you know, but what would you like to see from last year's format?
Um, I mean, ideally, we would have liked to see a couple more teams, so we don't have this weird like 8-team tournament style.
Yeah.
Obviously, for LAN events to come back, uh, hopefully more server locations if we're going to be online, so we bridge a little bit of the gap in between teams because they were kind of spaced out before. Hopefully we're gonna have a pause feature now, so we don't have to deal with any of these lag outs that lose people entire matches.
Am I right in saying that there was actually a pause feature this year, but because it switched to online, that obviously didn't work anymore?
Yes, so um, I don't know why it worked. It's because we had, I don't know, maybe because we're all on LAN it worked with the PC to console thing, but I don't think you could pause online PC to console for whatever reason. But yeah, we had it in the first place. But yeah, obviously that wasn't there anymore because there's been a lot of matches lost by people
Yeah.
getting, hit offline and stuff.
Oh yeah, we saw that at the World Championship. That was a fun couple of days for the Call of Duty community. Um, I suppose a quick follow up. I'm kind of curious. Is like obviously playing COD on PC, much different experience. Have you been messing around with the field of view? Because that's a massive thing for COD players that've never had to really change before.
Yeah, I've I've been playing on 110. I've been playing PC Warzone for a little bit as well, so I kind of just matched my settings and swapped them over. But yeah, I like 110. I've been playing on it. It looks nice.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think that wraps it up. It has been an absolute pleasure, Justin, to have you on and kind of walk through your team. Tell you what, one last question, because I think this is a really good one, actually. Before we end it, a bonus question: who do you think is the best team on paper so far that's been announced?
Phase, and it's not even close.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's an easy one then. Easy, quick fire one. But before we go, obviously, anything you want to say to people listening or watching at home? Any final statements or thoughts?
Um, just that I'm excited to represent the West Coast for once. My first like West Coast team, and it's LA. Hopefully gonna improve a lot from last year, standing wise, and make the LA fans proud.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me here and walking back through memory lane. As nice as memories might be, or as horrible as they might be, I do appreciate you giving me your time. And I'll probably catch up with you again in about 6 months to see how this season went and so on and so forth. But I really do appreciate you giving me the time. And the same thing to all the fans watching and listening at home. Appreciate all the subscriptions on Spotify and YouTube. Keep them coming in. I try to reply to all the comments each week. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.